We are learning more about the impact of the Alabama Supreme Court's decision on in vitro fertilization. 3 of the state's largest clinics have now paused IVF procedures while they analyze the decision, which gave frozen embryos the same rights as children. Janet Shamlian met a cancer survivor whose last hope of growing her family is IVF.
Oh! With 2 children, Birmingham nurse Sarah Houston and her husband wanted to add to their family, but a routine exam revealed the now 35-year-old had cervical cancer, requiring life-changing surgery.
I went into the OR to have a radical hysterectomy, so they removed my cervix, my uterus, lymph nodes, tissues, etc.
And you thought at that point, I'll never have another child?
I did.
But because her ovaries were healthy, the couple started in vitro fertilization and found a surrogate who was to be implanted with their embryo next month, until a sobering call last week from her doctor saying the procedure was on hold.
I asked her at that point if it was an option to even look at moving her embryos out of state while they figured things out, and she told me that their guidance had been not to touch embryos at all.
How did that hit you?
Very hard.
3 of Alabama's 8 IVF clinics have stopped the procedure out of fear over liability, a real concern, says UC Davis law professor and reproductive historian Mary Ziegler.
The status is that, at least for the purposes of the state wrongful death law, these embryos are persons. The state Supreme Court hasn't said anything about criminal charges. But again, I think it's a fair reading of this ruling that if the justices view embryos in the way this ruling describes, that they would be interested in potentially weighing in on criminal liability down the road.
A bill introduced in Alabama's state Senate Tuesday would provide immunity to doctors performing the procedure.
Love you too.
How's it going?
Good.
But for now, patients like Houston are in limbo.
And I think the cancer diagnosis was hard because you were put in a lot of places where you're just waiting, for test results, or you're waiting for an answer on this or that. But you always knew when the end was going to come. You knew the next appointment. And I think that's probably the biggest difference as far as the pain you feel with a cancer diagnosis versus this is you don't know when it's going to end.
So this is worse.
Mm-hmm.
Alabama's Republican governor says she supports efforts to allow IVF here. Meanwhile, the Health and Human Services Secretary was in Alabama Tuesday talking to IVF patients and calling what happened here a direct result of the Supreme Court's overturning of Roe v. Wade.